Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
It is the threshold to the weekend, Thursday. Oh, yeah, just one more day until we'll be standing right there on Friday looking into the weekend. Welcome. I am C.L. Bryant. Welcome to the C.L. Bryant Show. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming along with us on this great American journey. All of you folks in North Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina, as well as Raleigh, Durham, and southern Arkansas, East Texas, and throughout the Gulf Coast of the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that is America. Glad that you are here. Folks, got a lot to talk about. Mike Johnson, United States Representative Mike Johnson from the great state of Louisiana will be my guest coming up in the next block. You want to stay tuned. And then later on in the show from down in New Orleans, we have Nadra Indy, who is also known as Captain Black, going to be on with me a little bit later on. Talk about that crime that's happening down there. You may have been tuned in yesterday when I was talking to McKinley up there, Paul McKinley up there in Chicago, about the atrocity that the political system is actually supporting in the crime and the deaths that are taking place in Chicago. And so Nadra is going to join me. Captain Black is going to join me at the 6:30 hour, but in the next block, in the 5:40 hour time slot, Mike Johnson is going to be here with me. Don't go anywhere. On this day in 1951, if you have your iPhone anywhere near you, or your computer in front of you, or even if you're driving a car that, let's say, is 2008 forward, you will understand and can appreciate what I'm about to say. 1951, the need for a new memory was necessary for the United States Navy so that they could have a computer fast enough for flight simulation. So what the folks at MIT got together and did was put together a 3D structure of wires and magnetic rings to act independently of one another. And this was the early form of what would become known as RAM, Random Access Memory. At the time, it took 1 microsecond to access the data. Today's computers are 1,000 times faster than the devices of yesteryear. 66 years ago today, in America, the framework was laid so that you could have in your hand what you are holding to speak to the world. Isn't that amazing? Only in America. That happened right here in America 66 years ago today. And friends, when we look at what is occurring in our country in particular, and really, even though we keep an eye on our enemies, people, and many of our enemies are right here within. A lot of our enemies, some of our enemies live next door, as many people have found out. But Winston Churchill said this: there are no lasting enemies, no lasting friendships, only lasting interest. People bond together because they believe they have common interests, and that may or may not always be what it appears to be. And one of the things that is happening in this country right now is that because people look like one another, they automatically think that their interests are the same. That's not true. That's certainly not been true of people of Caucasian persuasion, Italian persuasion, Irish persuasion. But somehow black people think this because you're black, you have the same interests as every other black person in the world. Not true. I tell you what, ask a Nigerian that question, and they'll tell you their interest is not the same as an American blacks. It's just not. Jamaicans will tell you the same thing. Irish from Ireland, they'll tell you that their interests are not the same as Irish here in America. It's just not, because we're coming from two different places. And when we look at what Paul McKinley was telling us last night, the values on the streets of inner city Chicago are different than the values of suburban America, whether you're white, black, red, yellow, black, or white. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So, enemies, there's no lasting enemies. There are no lasting friends. But there are lasting perceived interest. Whatever binds you together as a neighborhood, as a family, as a country, a business, then that's something that can last. And, folks, I have to tell you something, and we'll be talking about this tomorrow for sure, about those perceived interests. Because those perceived interests can create racist attitudes and a mob mentality. Oh, I remember when I was president of NAACP in Garland, Texas, we were trying to push through something that would actually create magnet schools and keep some schools in the inner city open. In fact, the magnet schools in Garland, Texas began forming. They happened on my watch. I was a two-term president there in Garland. The previous president launched the suit. I saw it through, and the president after me reaped the benefits of those schools coming into being. But I do remember the mob mentality when we'd show up at those school board meetings, because people just didn't understand that we actually had the same interest. I'll be back.
It brings me down.
CL, back with you on this Thursday here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, Shreveport, and Bossier. I am your native son, and so glad to be with you. And I want to let you know something, folks. Louisianians, we have wonderful representation in Washington, D.C. I'm very proud of not only Bill Cassidy and his visibility there, but also John Kennedy. They're all regulars on the show. But the next guest is not only somebody I'm very proud of, but somebody who I love as a brother in Christ and really trust his judgment. So happy that he is the Louisiana Representative District 4 there in Washington, D.C. None other than a friend of our show, my friend, Mike Johnson. Welcome back to CL Bryant Show. How are you, brother?
Hey, my friend. Good to talk with you.
You as well, Mike. There is a lot of buzz going on right now in our country. Questions are swirling about on what you all are doing with our health care package, or the health care package that finally came out of the House of Representatives, now in the Senate. Mike, people are asking this question. Pre-existing illnesses. Explain to us how this health care package that is sent over now is going to address that all-important question. Do you cover them?
Yeah, absolutely, CL. That's a great question. It's an important distinction to make here. You know, there's a radical left element in this country right now. They're using scare tactics and misinformation. They're intentionally trying to draw opposition to the repeal and replacement of Obamacare based on this idea that somehow people with pre-existing conditions are suddenly going to be left hanging and not have coverage. And it's just simply not true. The president committed to protecting those with pre-existing conditions on the campaign trail, and that is certainly part of the House bill. And the way that we've done it is to create what they call an invisible risk pool. It's a high-risk pool model that's based upon not a theory but actual practice, what has actually worked on the state level. In the state of Maine, for example, in 2011, prior to Obamacare, the state of Maine, which is a liberal state, left-leaning, they instituted many of the principles of Obamacare, even before there was a federal law. Well, and they had the effect there that is happening now on the national scale. We know that premiums are skyrocketing, deductibles are getting to a point where they're unaffordable. People are losing their coverage because of Obamacare. In fact, in a fourth of the counties in the country right now, there's only one insurer left, and they will be pulling out in many of those places in 2018 if we don't fix this. In the state of Iowa, there will be no insurance company at all, no insurance allowed at all for any resident in Iowa in 2018. 16 counties in Tennessee, the same thing, and many more. So we have to fix it. So in Maine, what they did when they had that problem for their state program, it was just unsustainable. So they got around, some smart people got around the table, and they said, how can we provide insurance coverage for everyone, but yet keep the cost to a manageable level? They created what they call the high-risk pool, the invisible risk-sharing pool, and here's the simplest summary of what I can give you what it does. They take basically 4 to 6% of the population are those with your cancer, ailments, and chronic illnesses. That's the cost drivers in healthcare overall, in a general sense. But it's only 4 to 6% of the population. So in Maine, what they did, CL, is they took that let's say 5% of the population, they put them aside into a separate risk pool, and they said their premiums, if they're in a separate pool, are going to be unaffordable for these poor folks. So what we're going to do is subsidize their premiums. We're going to have a state program, the state of Maine, that will subsidize their costs so they can still afford their health care. What happens then, the natural effect, is for the 95% of the rest of the population, because the cost drivers were pulled out of that market, their premiums all went down dramatically, in some cases over 30%.
That's That's mathematically logical. It's logical that it would.
It's logical.
Mathematically,
it follows common sense. Mm-hmm. And they theorized it would work, and that's exactly what happened. And overall, more residents of the state of Maine actually were able to get insurance in that new market, under that new system, because health care became affordable again for everybody across the board. It worked marvelously, and then when Obamacare's provisions kicked in 2014, that program subsided. So for 3 years, it was tested, proven, and it worked. Wisconsin did a version, and a couple other states as well. So the American Health Care Act, the Republicans' repeal and replacement of Obamacare, the bill we passed last Thursday in the House, implements and includes that model. And so it's going to allow for each state to create its own Maine-like invisible risk sharing pool so that those with pre-existing conditions can continue to be covered, and that their premiums, which will be quite high, will be subsidized first by the federal government for a number of years and then ultimately by the states with their own system like that.
Fantastic.
So it's a lengthy answer to it.
Well, no, that's a very good answer, Mike, because you answered, and we were able to follow that. Is there anywhere on your website or anywhere in your contact where folks can go to Mike Johnson's website and get a capsuled explanation of what we just talked about?
That's a great point, CL. I'll put some of that on the website. It's mikejohnson.house.gov. We'll get something up on the website that'll provide that easy explanation. There are other sources for that, and for those who really do want to get the true facts and dispel all these myths and rumors, the House Republicans, any of the websites that cover the Republican delegation in the House, they're going to have plenty of explanations and bullet points and summaries of all this. Healthcare is a very complex thing to fix. It covers about 1/6 of the U.S. economy. It's not an easy task, and replacing Obamacare is not a simple thing. But there's a lot of hard work, a lot of deliberate effort, some very careful thought that's gone into this, and I think at the end of the day, this is going to be the reform that helps all Americans. More people are going to have insurance. It's going to be affordable again, and we're going to do right by the American people. That was the commitment of the President and the Republicans as we ran for Congress, and I think we're going to fulfill that.
Now, Mike, if you can stay with me through the break, I want to talk about you being in the district on Monday. You're having a town hall, I believe that's at high noon. I want to find out where that is so that we can get people there. And, folks, we want to have civil discussion. I understand that something nutty is going on down at the courthouse. It has gone on down at the courthouse at 5 o'clock hour here in Shreveport. But I'll be back with United States Representative from the great state of Louisiana, Mike Johnson, when we return. I'm CL. Don't go anywhere. CL, back with you here on the threshold of the weekend with United States Representative from the great state of Louisiana, Mike Johnson. And Mike, I know that you're going to be in district this next week. But before we talk about that town hall that you're going to have, when the health care bill returns to you, the AHCA returns to you, what do you expect it to look like? I know that when you send it over to the Senate, it many times comes back looking very different. How much do you expect it to be changed?
That's literally the $1 trillion question right now. We just don't know. Over the weekend, a number of senators came out and beat their chest and said, "Oh, we're going to start over, start from scratch," and all of this. I hope that that's just bluster and it's not true. There's a lot of really important principles and provisions in the bill that we've sent over. A lot of work and thought has gone into that, blood, sweat, and tears all the way across the board. And I think if they want to modify and improve upon that, more power to them. But starting over, I think is going to be a disservice to the American people because, for one, it will take a long time to do it.
Yeah.
And number two, I'm just afraid of what that final product would look like. So.
Yeah, and we have the American people waiting for what we have been promising over 6 years now. And now that we have the White House, we have the House of Representatives, we have the Senate. Mike, I don't know how long the natives will keep from being restless. And so we got to have something here real soon. And I appreciate the efforts that you are making. Now, on Monday, you are having a town hall. I have seen town halls across the country, participated in some across the country where people were very disruptive. Where and when, what time is your town hall going to take place in the district on Monday?
Well, look, we've had several already, and I have not had any unruly participants at any of our town halls.
Great.
We have 15 parishes in the 4th Congressional District, and so far they've all gone very, very well. We've had great dialogue and discussion about important issues, and I look forward to these. The one for Bossier City in this area will be on Monday at noon at BIPSI at the Bossier Parish Community College in the auditorium there. Everyone's welcome and invited to come and attend and hear, the latest from me about sort of the bird's eye view of what's going on in Washington, and then we'll take questions and have dialogue, and I hope it's productive. And bring the difficult questions. I love that. You know me, CL, for 20 years. I've been on the front lines of the culture war we talk about all the time, and I love open dialogue. I love to get with those who disagree and reason together. I think it's an important part of public policy and what makes America great. So I encourage it. I'm looking forward to it. And
Mike, there was, and you can straighten this out for me. There was a bill that you were engaged in that dealt with sex offenders, child predators. Bring that to the forefront. So I don't know if many people are aware of your fight in that. Would you tell us more about it?
Well, listen, part of our worldview is that we believe that one of the principal responsibilities of the government is to protect and defend the most defenseless among us, and certainly that would apply to children who are the victims of sexual predators. And without getting into too much graphic detail on the radio, we have sensitive ears listening, we passed a bill out of the Judiciary Committee in the House last week. It was a bill I authored to close a loophole in federal law that shamefully has allowed admitted child sexual predators to evade prosecution or conviction if they have images of those heinous acts on their telephone and they claim that they had no intention of recording those photos. Without getting into too much of the weeds, that's the gist to close that loophole in the law that was created by the courts. No surprise, federal appellate court created that loophole. So I was delighted to get that through the Judiciary Committee last week and get a good, solid majority in the committee, and we're bringing it straight to the House now, and I suspect it'll become part of our federal law, and it's an important thing.
Fantastic.
To protect children from these animals who are out preying on them. And,
fantastic.
Raping children and the rest.
The good friend and colleague Amy Bloxham. She is very responsible for Justin's Law. Her son was a victim of this heinous crime, and I certainly want to hook the two of you up. Finally, Mike, one last question that is coming from our people here in the area. State lines, across state lines, insurance sales across state lines, of course, it's the cornerstone of capitalism. Is that also in the portion that makes this so affordable, is that we will be competitive as far as the purchase of insurance is concerned?
It's critically important for us to enact across state line sales of insurance, as well as increasing the use of health savings accounts, price transparency. When you go to a hospital, you ought to be able to see a price list. What's the X-ray going to cost you here, as opposed to down at Quick Care or some other, Velocity Care or other competitors? None of that is in place right now in our healthcare system, and it's among the reasons that the prices and the costs are so high. We did not put it into this version of the bill that's been sent to the Senate, because we're going through the reconciliation process right now. We probably don't have time to unpack what all that means, but basically it's a procedural limitation on what we can do right now. If we don't pass this bill through the reconciliation process, we'll need 60 votes in the Senate to get it done. If we go through reconciliation, we only need a bare majority, 51. So that's a critical thing for us to do. It hems us in on what we're allowed to do under the archaic rules of the U.S. Senate. That's what's tied our hands. But these other provisions that you and I are talking about are going to be part of the third phase of the repeal and replacement of Obamacare. The first phase is the AHCA. The second phase is Secretary Price, the Secretary of Health, and his administrative actions, of what he'll do with a pen to unwind what Secretary Sebelius did under the Obama administration.
Right.
And then the third phase will be these other improvements that we bring in a separate piece of legislation after the first phase is completed. And,
Mike, you
I
always.
wish we had an hour to talk about that.
I wish we. Hey, listen. Whenever you're back, this chair is always open to you, man. It's always,
I need to come in.
You need to come on in, brother. Listen, you always acquit yourself well, and we're so proud of you. And God bless you. God keep you. Tell Kelly and the kids that I said hello. And listen, travel safe. We'll talk to you real soon.
You got it, brother. Thanks for what you do. Appreciate it.
Mike Johnson, Louisiana's 4th District, United States representative from the great state of Louisiana. I'll be right back. I'm CL. Don't you go anywhere.
Watching for the snow. I've been thinking lately of what I'm missing in the city.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
It is I, your native son, back with you on this Thursday here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, streaming nationwide throughout the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that is the United States. Question for you: how far will liberals go to press and push their agenda? I can tell you there is no limit. There is no limit to how far they will go to push their agenda, including creating pawns, useful idiots, to carry out something that very well could become nefarious. It has become nefarious on other occasions, like the promotion that led to Ferguson, that led to Baltimore. Yeah. Behind the scenes, and I'm going to talk a lot about this tomorrow. I want you to tune in the weekend show, a show that's rerun on our friend station, The Promise, both on Saturday and then on Monday. The people behind the scenes, the men, the women behind the curtain, are the ones who are pulling the strings of those useful idiots. Give you an example of two. One, Bethune-Cookman, Daytona Beach, Florida. Historic. Prestigious, private HBCU there in Daytona Beach. Beautiful campus. It is. Graduation exercises. Betsy DeVos is the Secretary of Education. She is an invited speaker to the campus to speak to the 2017, wow, that would be great, the 2017 graduates of Bethune-Cookman, who perhaps don't realize what a privilege, how elite that does make them in 2017 America, among a 50% unemployed black workforce. The opportunity to get a job and to be spoken to by someone who knows how to create them. Betsy DeVos. What did they do? They embarrassed their parents is what they did. I had a chance to talk to them. They're coming on with me. The names will be changed to protect the innocent. In fact, we won't be giving the names, but I will have a couple of parents of those students on next week. They were not aware that their sons and daughters were going to behave in this fashion. Not after they spent all of that money and all of that time bringing them to a place where they were qualified to go to college and then shepherding them through the process of staying in college. They did not expect them to behave in this fashion because the way they behaved was unworthy of the high calling that these parents had envisioned for their young people. There is no limit to what progressive liberals will do to push across an agenda, especially when they have the aiding and abetting of useful idiots wanting to be used in the service of that type of progression, spurred on by their college professors. Oh, it is a cesspool that is being steered in this country, a cesspool that tells so many that we are yet back in the 60s. Folks, I was in the 60s, and I can tell you point blank, as bad as it was then, that's how good it is now. Oh, yeah. It was bad. I've drank from the black and white water fountains. I've drank from both of them. That's true. And for the life of me, I don't understand what the big deal was. It tastes the same. I've ridden on the back of the bus. We got to the same place, same time. Went out one door. You got the front door, got the back door. Buses had two doors. Still don't understand what the big deal was, but I experienced that. And bitter? No. Why? Because I'm able to talk about that now in a state of triumph. I saw what it was, and I see what it is. And, hey, what it is better. But the young people in the classrooms today don't understand that. They somehow think that they are victims of some type of oppression just because, well, there is inner cities, but there's always been that. Go back to Greece, Rome. There's always been that. Poor have always been with us. But there have always been those who have found their way out of that type of existence to rise to the top and tell the story of triumph. And instead of the story of victimhood that goes along with the progressive liberal agenda, and keep in mind, I've just told you the progressive liberals don't care who they use as their tools and their fools. They don't care. As long as they are able to direct the chaos on the streets of America. Someone is going to have to call it what it is. And I am telling you that when you look at a professor of philosophy at the University of Texas, UT Texas, A&M, Aggies. You know what you call an Aggie when he graduates from college? You know what you call an Aggie when he graduates from the University of Texas, A&M? The boss. That's how prestigious that degree can be. Yet you have a professor there of philosophy calling for, we're going to talk about this in detail tomorrow. So just give me a warm up. Calling for violence against white folks on the University of Texas campus. Now, that tells you something right there. It tells you something. It tells you that this is a progressive liberal agenda, because University of Texas is not Howard University. It's UT Texas. But yet he is getting away with saying that when actually seems more to me like a terroristic threat. We'll talk more when I return. I'm CL. Yeah, it's all happening right here in America. We are definitely coming to crossroads in this country. I'm not really sure exactly how we are going to, not really exactly sure how we're going to fare over a long period of time. But I guess we're going to fare well. I'm C.L. Bryant. This is C.L. Bryant Show. So glad that you're along with me here, broadcasting from our flagship station, 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL AM. All you folks in North Carolina, want to thank you for being there, along with Southern Arkansas and East Texas. I want to remind you folks that one of our sponsors, our good friends at Bailey's Fine Jewelers, tomorrow, I want to remind you that free mammograms, they have a world-class type of bus that is out there that will be giving from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. tomorrow, free mammograms. The address, 2934 East Texas Street in Bossier City. Be sure to get your loved one. Hey, it's a great time to have that done for mom, daughters. It's a great time to do that. Right out in front of Bailey's, right out in front of Bailey's Fine Jewelers there on Texas Street, right behind Toys R Us, right beside Regions Bank. And I want to share this with you as well. Alice Cooper tickets. We gave away some tickets the other day. He was at Herbie K's. Oh yeah, Herbie K's, an American institution. I have a good buddy who might be listening, Joe Carey. We should have took you to Herbie K's. Alice Cooper stopped in at Herbie K's and had a fantastic time. I'm looking at a pic of that Rockin' Rick sent over to me just a little bit ago. Folks, we are looking at a climate of mediocrity. In fact, there is a doctrine of mediocrity that is being pawned off on us as we watch it happen. That's what socialism produces. It produces mediocrity. Mike Johnson was telling us that this healthcare system has to be overhauled. Otherwise, you're going to have mediocre medicine, mediocre doctors. One of the reasons so many doctors have already left the healthcare profession is because, one, they couldn't get paid. Secondly, there was not really any competition when you have a government-run type of system. I guess all of you get paid, or all of you don't get paid, the doctors I'm talking about. They don't get paid at the same rate of non-payment. Yeah, you don't get paid at the same rate of non-payment. Why stay? And that is exactly the thing that happens when we're talking about selling this product across state lines. Now, keep in mind what I have been telling you since this whole debate has begun. Whether you call it Obamacare or Trump Care, AHCA or affordable health care, either way you go with it, Obamacare, it's still government intervention into the health care system, which, as far as I'm concerned, is still unconstitutional, because you do have the government still standing between you and your doctor. It's just one side saying that our idea on this and our product is better than the last product. That's all it is. You still have government, the heavy hand of government, standing between you and your doctor. And I do remember the time when that was simply the doctor and you making decisions about you, and you paid what you knew you could pay. Doctors, I remember the doctor coming out to my grandfather's house when he was ill down on the farm. Came out to the house. My mother was there. I've told you this story before. And my mother asked the doctor, "Is my daddy going to die?" And the doctor says, Elnola, I don't think so because he has a strong constitution. I never have forgotten those words. Didn't really know what a constitution was, but I do now. And when I think about our health care system and when I think about our republic dying, and when I think about the chaos that is being, inflamed in this nation right now, I wonder, can our country live? We're asking the various doctors who we elect to office to help us answer that question. And I would certainly like to believe that the same answer is available to us that was available to my mom in regard to her father. Will my daddy live? Will our country live? I'd like to hear the words, I don't believe so, because we have a strong constitution. It should live because of the foundation that it is built upon. It should live. But will it? Will it? If it is treated properly, taken care of, it can live. But if treated recklessly, with abandon, as we are doing now, and modifying things that should not be modifying, or at least tolerating things and calling them a part of rights that don't exist. Call me a knuckle dragger, call me a Neanderthal, what have you. I believe that the American dream consists of these things. A person who wants to keep their family safe, warm, fed, and dry. And friends, I must tell you that within itself, the ability to do that is an individual, personal responsibility, not a requirement of your government. However, government should get out of your way and let you do the best that you can with your God-given endowment to keep your family safe, warm, fed, and dry. You achieve the dream by doing that for yourself. I'm CL. We're going to be back with Nadra Enzi when I return. Captain Black talking about violence in New Orleans. Don't go anywhere.
Summer
Yeah. We gave away some tickets to the weird one, the strange one, Alice Cooper. That concert is, I believe, tonight. And all of you kids who may not be old enough quite to remember the song School's Out, that's Alice Cooper. Your mom remembers it. And somebody called in and got 2 tickets for their mother for tonight for Mother's Day. And I'm so glad that all of you have made our show so popular here in the region, and I thank you for that. On the line with me now is a shaker and mover in the New Orleans area. He is an activist in New Orleans, and I want to welcome back to the show now Nadri Enzi. Captain Black, thank you so much for being there, brother. Welcome back to CL Bryant Show.
Greetings, fellow hostages and hostagettes. How you doing?
Yeah, man, I guess we are in so many ways hostages right now, Captain. Let me ask you this, man. I was talking to a fellow by the name of Paul McKinley yesterday. He was up in Chicago. Yeah. And Paul was telling us that the violence that goes on in Chicago is, in fact, allowed, in fact, sanctioned by the Democrat Party machine. Is that somewhat similar to what you may say is going on in New Orleans? How are you seeing that?
I would not only say sanctioned, but once you stood down NOPD, you don't even get the pretense of police presence anymore.
Wow.
We have criminals, career criminals, with de facto diplomatic immunity here in New Orleans. And guess what? While the mayor is using a police department at a 40-year low to protect Antifa thugs and statues,
wow,
our per capita violent crime rate has exceeded that of Chicago, incidentally.
No kidding.
Oh, yes.
Oh, man, I wasn't up on that. I got to admit it. I wasn't up on that. New Orleans is now taken back number 1.
Yeah, just for our population size, which is even more disturbing, because if you read the newspaper, you hear that our hug-a-thug promoting federal consent decree monitor and our hug-a-thug promoting police politicians, not the rank and file, not the good men and women who are out there risking their lives, but the politicians with badges on, they're in the newspaper talking about how great everything is.
Wow. You know what, Captain Black, Nadra Indri is who we are on with activists there in New Orleans. And by the way, I want to thank you on behalf of the president of our organization, Adam Brandon, for showing us around and showing us a good time. Had a great time with you there in New Orleans when we were visiting down there. And thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
You have coined something here as far as what the progressive liberals do, and that's exactly what they do. They embrace thuggery, and by embracing it, they promote it. And so it is a part of the political design of a city that we're seeing that is overrun by violence. So per capita, New Orleans is now exceeding Chicago as far as violent crime.
Absolutely. I mean, again, we had on Good Friday, a woman was shot holding her baby. All of these statue stalkers could not even be bothered to pause to call for some justice for this woman and her child who could have been shot. And this is not an unusual circumstance. That's even sadder.
You are coining some phrases here, the statue stalkers. Let's tell you what you were talking about, folks. You know, these historical monuments that, and Nader, you came out of the South. You're from the South. What is it, Savannah, right?
Yeah, Savannah,
so you're
Georgia.
from Savannah, Georgia. And I know that there are historical statues there because that was part of the Confederacy, too.
The tallest statue in Savannah is the Confederate Memorial in Forsyth Park.
Right.
And as I remind people, none of these memorials are responsible for the monumental violence that is devastating our urban centers from one end of our great nation to the other.
Wow. That is so true, man. Folks, take that to heart. Take that to heart, what Captain Black, Nadri India is saying. None of the statues none of the Confederate memorials have any say, have no say whatsoever in the choices that are being made with black on black crime that's going on in this country. Statue stalkers, man, I like it. I like it because that's exactly what we're seeing. But I'm surprised that your mayor, Landrieu, is doing this because he, in fact, wanted at one time to actually embrace the word Confederate. He's very hypocritical in the way he's going about this.
Well, there's a wind blowing behind me, and it kind of sums up Landrieu's approach. He stuck his finger up to see which direction the wind was blowing. He was hoping to get a position in the Hillary Clinton administration. That didn't work. So now he's going to stir up fear, hostility, and hopefully not, but a potential murder to who knows.
Yeah.
All in the name of a bigger footnote in the history book about New Orleans tricentennial coming up next year and whatever national office he's trying to line himself for. He could care less, I think at least, about the statues. He could care less, I think at least, about the majority black vote that regrettably put him in office twice.
Yeah.
He only cares about his naked, narrow-minded political ambition.
I do believe that he is going to try and make a run. He's still going to have his finger in the air testing the direction of the wind, but I do believe he's going to try to make a run either for the governor's chair or the president's office in 2020. Nadra, you also are on patrol there. You have a patrol there in New Orleans. Tell us about the purpose of and what you do on patrol.
Sure. It's the Cat Black Street Patrol, and we monitor media, police reports. We go to high crime areas. We provide free, yes, FREE, walking escorts, mostly the women, but anybody who needs one. We do victim advocacy. If you think that you filed a police report and it went into the twilight zone.
Hold that thought right there. Hold that thought right there, Nadra. I'm going to come back with you after the break. I'm CL. This is the CL Bryant Show. Back with Captain Black, Nadra Enzi, when we return.
The night we're laughing and I'm joking and we're feeling alright. Oh, I'm back. I'm nationwide. Yes, I'm back. I'm nationwide.
That's exactly what we're trying to do. Break on through to the other side. We have reached a wall now that we must break through, one that we have come to before. And remember, those of us who do not learn the lessons of our past are doomed to repeat them. America, have we learned the lessons that we should have learned in our American past? Joining me now is Captain Black, Nadra Enzi, and he's in New Orleans, Louisiana. Nadra, you were talking about your, it's something that you've begun, and it is a service actually to the community and those who might actually find themselves preyed upon. Tell us more about it.
Sure. It's called the Cat Black Street Patrol, and we are volunteers who provide walking escorts and victim advocacy to people in need. We also network with online groups, with crime survivors, with people who are concerned about crime in their area, so that we can mobilize. As opposed to watching crime be organized, I tell people we, the potential victims of crime, have to be equally organized. So that's what I've been doing. First started it in Savannah under one name, and now here in New Orleans. Cat
Black Street Patrol, is there a website? How do the people get a hold of you?
Well, as a matter of fact, you can go to my Facebook page, CAP Black, RLSH, which stands for Real Life Superhero, and I always ask for folks to feel like zeros. If you're paying taxes, if you're playing by the rules, if you're obeying the law, you might feel like a zero these days.
I just absolutely love it, man. And let me say this. I do appreciate everything that you do. You're a courageous stand-up guy. I've known him for several years now. The first premiere that we did in New Orleans, Captain Black was there, and met him nearly four years ago now. And so God bless you and God keep you. Now, when we look at the progressive liberal city that New Orleans is in a red state like Louisiana, are you seeing the same effects on the educational system there? Tell us about that New Orleans educational system, because it is horrendous in Chicago. Are you mirroring Chicago in that aspect?
They have decentralized and dismantled New Orleans education system. You still have a school board, but New Orleans will probably be, by year's end, America's first exclusively charter school run school system.
Yeah.
You know, each one of our schools at the various levels are being operated by any number of charter operators. Whether or not that's working, of course, is something that's being debated even by erstwhile school choice supporters. You know, some people in the Tea Party, some constitutional conservatives, as well as liberals, as well as moderates, are just having questions. I think that school choice obviously is something that anybody who's seen the lack of choice in inner cities can support, but it's the execution of it. And New Orleans is going to be the test model, I think, for just how broadly the charter model will be used to save failing schools, which in most of our Democrat-run urban centers,
Speaking of
you don't have any public school success stories of any great note, and you definitely don't have successful public school systems, but you do have a lot of young people who are very successful at selling drugs, at being illiterate, and at killing people. Probably not what the taxpayers want.
Probably not. We're not turning out a good citizen as far as that is concerned. Speaking of school choice, when Betsy DeVos spoke of school choice and the privilege that the graduates of Bethune-Cookman had in choosing where they went to school, they went all the way back to the 60s as far as their thinking was concerned, and none of them were born at that point in time.
Nope.
Why do you have that type of pushback? Is that by design? I often think that it is. How are you seeing it?
I mean, the urban millennial, just like his suburban counterpart, in too many cases, is being told it's his way or the highway, and that you can intimidate people with whom you disagree into silence. And sadly, like you said, they weren't born in the 60s. For their formative years, the past 8 years, they saw a president who kowtowed to rioters, to cop killers, and they say, hey, the way to get my way is to intimidate people in the silence. You know, it's not rocket science. We see it on display. They believe free speech only means for them.
Wow. And the example of that did, in fact, come, especially when you're looking at college graduates from a place like Bethune-Cookman or, for that matter, University of Texas, A&M.
Yep.
You have it there as well. The formative years, those last 8 years that these kids, when you look back, say they're 21 now, we're talking about kids who were 12 and 11 and 12 years old. So in those formative years, that's a very, very good insight on that, Nadra. They were listening to hope and change and fundamental change of this nation, and it's being it's come to fruition in the way we're seeing it happen in college grads. Man, I got to thank you for being on with me. Got to have you back more often. Going to be down that way real soon.
Okay.
I'll let you know when I'm coming in. I got to meet another one of my our dignitaries coming in down there, and we know what to take them. We know what to do, and who to call. We know who to call. And Captain Black, God bless you. God keep you. Nadra Enzi, Cap Black Street Patrol, is always there on his beat. God bless you, man. Talk to you soon.
God bless you, too.
I'm CL. This is the CL Bryant Show. We're going to return here in just a little bit with a home stretch. Wow, I tell you, really do need 3 hours to go by so fast. We'll be looking at the home stretch when we return. And, folks, there is so much for us to talk about. I loved the ideas that I got here from Nadra when we look at those who are statue stalkers, those who are hugging a thug. Hug a thug. Oh, boy. I'm CL. We'll be right back. CL, back with you on this Thursday, gateway to the weekend, and I certainly hope that you're not planning on doing anything stupid over the weekend. Remember, you do have the choice, and I hope that you will not be participating in what Captain Black, Nadra Enzi, called hugging a thug. Don't hug a thug this weekend. Can I say... Ruben, I can't say thug. I mean, that's politically incorrect. I think saying thug is politically incorrect these days. Is that right?
They're starting to say so. Whoever they are. They're definitely starting to say that it is.
Yeah, they is them. Yeah, that's for sure. And so, folks, when we think about the word police out there and the things that they don't want you to say because it hurts somebody's feelings, well, how can you hurt the feeling of a thug by calling him a thug? I don't think they're thinking about the thug at all. They're thinking about, you see, and that is the trick of progressive liberalism. The people that they want to use word police to protect are not threatened at all. The only person who fits the description or wears the shoe of being a thug is a thug. But progressive liberals, when you say that word, what comes to their minds, not yours, what comes to their minds is the group of people. And so it is their job to protect what they have made their mascots, the group of people. Therefore, they can actually trigger the mob reaction when they emotionally inflame or stimulate the group that is their mascot by making them think that they have been insulted. Are you seeing how that works? Yeah. You see, it's like mass hysteria. The individual by himself may not be nutty at all. They may not go nuts on you at all if you say thug. You understand? But you get the group together and tell them that, hey, they're talking about y'all, and you say thug. Then you can control them emotionally because you get the mass hysteria. You get them feeding off of themselves. That happens with Occupy Wall Street. Nancy Pelosi is a master of it. Nancy Pelosi has the and I got to tell you, Harry Reid was good at it. Yeah, Chuck Schumer's becoming good at it. Oh, yeah, he's becoming good at creating mass hysteria. MSNBC, mass hysteria. Oh, yeah, Trump is evil. Republicans are evil. Now, if you get the individual off and able to talk to them one-on-one by themselves and let them know that, hey, I want the same things you want. That's the American dream, to keep my family warm, safe, fed, and dry. That's what conservatism is all about, really. I want to keep my family warm, safe, fed, and dry. I want to do that. And the question to them is, don't you? Or would you prefer government providing that for you, or do you want the opportunity to do it for yourself? Seeing how it is you know your family much more intimately than government could ever know them. There's just a one-size-fit-all with them. But when you tailor-make the income that your family needs by preparing yourself to make that income so that you can meet the challenges of your family's needs, you not only do something to stimulate your own self-esteem, but you also strengthen the society by giving the members of your family, particularly the children, an example of how you did it. Are you hearing me? But the progressive liberals want to create mass hysteria. Whenever you say that someone who is not acting properly in the framework of being a productive citizen and is acting against the society, whenever you call them a thug, you are then cutting out from that mob mentality herd the people who actually drag it down. The thugs. Oh, the thugs. The vandals. Yeah. A vandal is a vandal is a vandal until he is changed by a different way of thinking. But progressive liberals don't want that change. They want you to maintain the mob mentality, and so do the paid overseers, whether they're red, yellow, black, or white. The paid overseers want to maintain the mob mentality, because it is the mob mentality, after all, that drive them into elective political office. And they ride in on waves of emotions, and regardless of whether you're Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, it's people who are angry who go and vote. You better remember that. That's how, really, if you really want to look at it and be honest and balanced, Donald Trump's president because folks were mad. Folks were angry, ticked off. Hillary was not able to stimulate that emotion. There was nothing really that people could get excited about with her, and she could only say, if you don't elect me, it's because I'm a woman. No, not buying that this time. That's what American women said to her. Not me. American women said that to her, although I didn't vote for her. American women said, no, we're not buying that because you're a woman thing anymore. We're going to buy, and if they didn't vote, they stayed home. If they didn't vote for Trump, they stayed home. And maybe they threw the vote over for Bernie. But people who are angry, people who are upset, the model has always worked. They go vote. Conservatives, grassroots people, Republicans, you had better get a fire built under you. Go vote. I'll be back, home stretch, when I return.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
CL here on the home stretch. Gateway to the weekend, Thursday show. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. Go to our webpage, The C.L. Bryant Show, The C.L. Bryant Show. And hey, we're getting, there's a certain bug that we need to work out with our app. I'm understanding that we need to hook up with the new signal that we have in order for you to get it. I have heard you. I've heard every one of you saying, hey, CL, I'm not able to get you on my app anymore. So we'll work that out for you. Now, and of course, follow me. Follow me on Twitter at Rev CL Bryant, at Rev CL Bryant. Now, formative years. I was thinking about something during the break. I want you to think along with me on this. During the break, think about your 13, 14, 15-year-old right now. If they're college bound, we are in the graduation season and all of that. There are a lot of kids who are getting ready to go to high school. And then, of course, there are a lot of folks young people graduating from high school on their way to college. Tomorrow, I will be going to one of my granddaughter's graduation. I think she's graduating from the first grade, or kindergarten. Well, anyway, I'm going to the graduation. One of those things you don't miss. Grandparents, if you're in town, you don't miss that type thing. So I'm going to do that. But I was thinking about formative years. And there are different phases of that. Hers is from now until, I guess, age 10 or 12, and then from 12 to, say, 15. But from 15 up until she graduates from college, 22, 23 years of age, there also represents formative years where you take on a political type of posture and philosophy. And we were talking about how the young people that we're seeing on college campuses now, in their formative years, President Obama was the president of the United States, and there was a move to actually see to it that a fundamental change took place in this country. No doubt he had captured the heart, the mind of youth in this country, and those who did, in fact, vote against him, or those who were not on board with him. Those young people in that formative time of their life, they were told and they have believed that people who were not on board with Barack Obama were somehow evil in the sense that they're racist, bigots, and homophobes. Don't forget that. I was thinking about that. I was thinking that that is definitely so. Because the only president, the only time, or the time that they came of age politically, it was a time of that type of fundamental change in the way they viewed the presidency and the way they viewed our nation through the prism, through the eye of him. And folks, that may not be, in fact, it wasn't the best example during that period in time of who we are. That was not the best example of what leadership should have been in this country. And so now we have a president who, all things being equal, if he decides to go 8 years, I believe he can. Oh yeah, he's going to come out of the end of this. He's going to come out of this tunnel speed of light, because everything the progressive liberals are trying to throw at him are lies. They're absolute lies, even though lies do have an incredible effect on the unlearned, the unwashed masses, as they have been called. But these are just blatant. Think about this. In 8 years, there's an opportunity to reshape those who were formed, their formative years, were under Obama. One of the reasons why you have to handle this point in time in American history correctly or right is because you are actually affecting the formative years of those who will be graduating college, who are now in high school, who are now in junior high school. You are affecting their formative years. In 8 years, they'll be graduating college. Will we have stemmed the tide of how they view the political scene? Or will this too, will these 8 years lend itself to designed chaos? We'll be back. I'm CL.
I found my mind in a brown paper bag, but then I tripped on a cloud and fell 8 miles high. I tore my mind on a jagged sky. I just dropped in to see what condition my condition was in. Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, what condition my condition was in.
What condition will our condition be in? in the next years as we contemplate the formative years of the young people who are in junior high school right now, who are being formed by the political, economic, socioeconomic climate that is happening in America as we speak. Oh yeah. There are mindsets, there are political mindsets being formed right now as we speak. And how we handle this thing going forward will, in fact, determine how it shakes out 8 years from now. Oh, yeah. I can and say again to you that there are people who want to create a hug-a-thug type of society. You see it in Chicago. You've heard about it now in New Orleans. You see it down in Southern California. You see it in New York City, where the progressive liberal media want to bleed at the heart for those who are disruptive in society. And I am telling you that there need to be a restoration to something, hey, a novel idea, law and order. Is that, wow. That, my friends, is a novel idea. How about law and order? Oh, but they have turned that into a politically incorrect type of phrase. You're only using that as code to say, get the minorities. Law and order. That's code for keep them in their place. Folks, that's nonsense. I will admit, now I'm a child of the 60s. I grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana in the 60s. I will admit that there was a time when that very well could have meant just that. But no, now that I have access to the access, now that I have access to the process and the ability to compete, hire my own attorneys, build my own life, or at least in the sense where we can escape government regulation. You can build it. Yes, this business, the business of C.L. Bryant Show, is something that I'm trying to build. Gonna find a way to do it too. I'm gonna find a way to do it. Lord's will. I'm gonna do it. Lord's will, with his strength, by his grace and mercy, gonna do it. As long as government regulations and people like folks who say you did not build that stay out of my way. You can build it. You can build it. And in the process, keep your family warm, safe, fed, and dry. Achieve the American dream. So many people may think that the American dream is something other than that. No, it's not. That's what it is. The American dream is all about keeping your family warm, safe, fed, and dry. Whatever order you want to put it in. But the political climate for the future is being formed, as being determined right now. And you better think about it that way, because you need to understand those things that are going into the minds of your middle school children will bear fruit 8 years from now when they graduate from college.
2 minutes.
If they decide to take a job other than college, if they decide to do something other than that, it will still produce fruit. What type of citizen will we have? What type of citizen are we producing? Are the examples that we're seeing on the streets of Berkeley, Chicago, New Orleans, Shreveport, wherever you may be living, what type of citizen are we producing in these formative years? Maybe we've forgotten that they're watching us. And as much hoopla that the national, progressive, liberal media is stirring up around this president, trying to paint him as dishonest, underhanded, and conservatives as evil, we had better be very active in combating those types of ideas with fresh, new approaches to it. That's what this show is about. Creating, producing the bridge to conversation. I'm CL. Gonna be back to wrap it up when I return.
I'm shuffling through the Texas sand, but my head's in Mississippi. I'm shuffling through the Texas sand, but my head's in Mississippi.
If you had not have fallen, then I would not have found you. Angel flying too close around.
CL here to close it out on this Thursday, the gateway to the weekend. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. The Weekend Show with me. I'm going to have California Ted Hayes on with me telling about his adventures in occupied L.A. Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm really grateful that our special guest, Congressman Mike Johnson, was able to join us tonight earlier in the show. And then Nadra Enzi, Captain Black down there in New Orleans, Louisiana, was able to be with us as well. Folks, the one thing that we must do now in order to save the Republic is to escape the doctrine of mediocrity, to keep us from falling into the abyss of being common. A nation that is exceptional, a nation like ours that is exceptional. How do we escape falling into the abyss of being common? I must say that one of the answers is, of course, to ask God to order our steps, and for us to also remember the words of one of our founders, Thomas Jefferson, who tells us that the price of our liberty is eternal vigilance. We must be very careful to be on guard, to be on watch for those things that would steal away from us the precious gift of liberty that gives us the right, helps us to exercise properly our freedoms. Be vigilant over the liberty. Well, that brings us right down to the close of yet another show. 2 hours goes by really fast. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming along with us on this journey. And I certainly hope to be making a stop by way of radio in a city near you, wherever you're listening to our show by way of live stream in the very near future. Well, I want to thank God for bringing us to the close of yet another day, and I want to thank him for our men and women in uniform around the globe who defend our right to speak our minds. And until I'm able to talk to you again, I'm CL, and may God bless and keep you all.
We'll stand by your side, and the bond will never